All right, guys, welcome back to today's video. So today we are going to go over what is an exchange traded fund. We're going to go through the different sectors and everything there is to know about exchange traded funds. But first, let's watch a video just to break it down. It breaks down a stock, a bond, and an ETF.
And more fundamental.
So starting with just some basics, what is a stock, what is a bond, and what's the difference? So I like to describe it as a stock is when you own part of the company through your investment. And a bond is when the company has debt to you. They've borrowed from you, essentially, and that's your investment. And a bond is a fixed income instrument, like an individual company bond or a treasury bill, and you're paid back at regular intervals. And now that we have stocks and bonds, we have the building blocks to graduate up to what are known as pooled investments.
Love a pool moment.
Essentially, it's when funds in a portfolio have been pooled from many individual investors and aggregated for the purpose of investment. So with a pooled investment, shareholders often have the opportunity to own many stocks or bonds of different companies rather than buying them individually. Two of the most popular are ETFs and mutual funds.
Great. So let's start with ETFs. What does it stand for? I want you to explain it to me.
ETFs stand for Exchange Traded Fund. So what that means is it's traded on a stock exchange like the NASDAQ. Because it's made up of multiple investments, as we said, it's essentially a basket of securities traded throughout the day. For people who may be new to investing, ETFs can offer a convenient way to help diversify a portfolio. For example, there's no minimum investment at Fidelity. You can purchase in any dollar amount. And with the thousands of ETFs that are available, if investors are interested in specific themes or industries, then that's certainly available to them.
So as you can see, there are all different types of ETFs. There are active ETFs, passive ETFs, thematic ETFs, equity ETFs, and the list goes on and on. As you can see, through the active ETFs, that means somebody is actively managing this fund, which is a basket of stocks. So I want you to think of stocks as it could be 50 stocks, it could be 100 stocks, all within one basket, and they're all managed together. And they just allocate a certain percentage. So if you had Apple, Tesla, and Microsoft, it could be 5% of that ETF would be Apple, 5% would be Tesla, 5% would be Microsoft. Next, you have passive ETFs, which is like the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones, how they track that. It just tracks the index, and whatever the market does, it just follows it. And then you have thematic ETFs, you have equity ETFs, which is just either like United States or international markets. Then you can do bonds, which is much more conservative. This is for like retirees, just they have a lot of money, they don't want to risk it, but they want to make 5 or 6% a year. Then you have sector ETFs where you can do like electric vehicles only. You could do biotechnology, you could do oil, you could do gas. You could focus on one specific section that you think, semiconductors, that's going to do well over time. And then you have factors and sustainable ETFs. So if you're going to invest in ETFs, then you need to understand what happens when you buy and sell them, the pricing and the disclosure. So with exchange traded funds, which is an ETF, they are continuously priced throughout the day. So that means that if it goes up in value or down in value in between the hours of 9:30 a.m. and 4 p.m., the prices can fluctuate, and they can fluctuate in the after hours as well, which is from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. So now basically ETFs, how do you do this? You just place your order through a broker such as like Fidelity, Charles Schwab, TD Ameritrade, Thinkorswim, like that. And you are allowed to place limit orders, which means that if you want to buy it at, let's say, $100 a share, you can put the order in for buying at $100 a share. And then you can do short sale orders, meaning you can sell short on it, but that's more advanced. Next, you have the pricing. It's just showing that the pricing fluctuates throughout the day on an exchange. And you have bid and an offer, which is somebody is willing to pay for it and sell it for. And then the NAV, all that means is what is the price of the ETF. And then based on your broker, you're going to see what are the trading costs of it. So there's a disclosure here. It's just saying that ETFs must disclose everything that is part of that ETF. So we're going to click on ETF soon, and I'm going to show you. It's just going to show all of the holdings, so you know exactly what the ETF is holding, all of the stocks that are involved within it. And then there's trading costs. If you're trading on a taxable brokerage account, then you're going to have to pay taxes on it. But if you trade in a retirement account and you buy and sell, you're not going to pay any taxes on it. So it's definitely a big difference to understand. And there are different possible more tax efficient ways to trade ETFs, which I wouldn't worry about that right now. We're just trying to break down what ETFs are. But let me show you like a composition of an ETF so you can get a better idea. So let's take a look at VOO. This is a very common ETF used to track the S&P 500. As you can see, we go under composition and it shows you that it is passively managed. So it's a passively managed ETF, and that's why it has lower fees. And we'll go over that very shortly. But I just want to show you in the ETF, it has to disclose all of the holdings. So look, total 508 holdings. These top 10 companies that you see right here make up 30.81% of the fund. And then the ETF will disclose the other funds as well. So if you really want to see it all, you can click on the bottom here where it says view all holdings by weight. So I clicked on the link, and now this ETF, this is the disclosure part. It'll show the basket holdings. It holds 504 companies. I'm highlighting them so you can see. You have the companies that are within this ETF, and then you have the percentage. So a good example is 7% goes into Apple, 6.97% goes into Microsoft, 3.44% is Amazon, and you can scroll through and go through the whole list of every single fund, every single stock that this ETF holds. All right, so now you can see Fidelity offers many ETFs. And all I did was type in ETFs under the search bar, and here we go. We have ETF Screener. So now what you can do is you can look at what type of ETF that you're looking for. And let's click under Fidelity. So these are Fidelity ETFs. And then we're going to click under, as you can see, you have Fidelity ETFs. They have active ETFs. That means higher fees. Then you have fixed income, beta ETFs, thematic ETFs, digital asset funds. So let's click under ETFs. And now you have a whole list. And this just looks like, if the first time you're seeing this, this is a lot. So what you can do is you can change your search criteria so you can find what you want to find. So we're going to scroll down a little bit down here. And this is on the Fidelity platform for those that are still keeping up. And what you can do is you can change different things about it. When it comes to an ETF, you want to have low fees. Expense ratio needs to be low. I like to have it at least at a minimum less than, 0.08. So what we're going to do is on the net expense ratio, you can change from very high, high, medium, low, and very low. And look at the expense ratio for this, 1.64 and above. If I clicked on that, you're going to see only funds, which there's nothing offered, that are above that because it's saying that 0 out of 55. So we'll show you this one. We'll click on 0.33% at a 0.73%. And then you can see the net expense ratio on the right side showing 0.6, 0.59. And this is what they charge you every single year. So every single year, it's going to charge you that fee that just comes out of the NAV price. So we'll click on low because I don't want to waste your time. I want you to find something that is actually useful. So we'll click on very low ETFs. And then we're going to make this search a little bit more niche. Investment philosophy. This is where it comes to actively versus passive. Remember, actively managed means that somebody is managing your account, so you're going to have higher fees. Versus passively managed, it's going to be lower fees. So we're going to click on, we're thinking long-term investments here. We have passively managed, and we can see that our search results are starting to get, smaller and smaller. Now we're at 27 results. So now, let's see if we can take this even a further step, and you can put in your objectives, exposures, trading characteristics, performance. Let's do performance. We want an ETF that actually is performing well. We're going to say above. Let's see here. We're going to do price performance, 52 weeks. And here we go. So now we can see the price performance over 52 weeks. So now we can see how is the ETF performing over 1 year period. And as you can see, the 1Q, which is the NASDAQ Composite Index ETF, is up 28%. So we're going to click on that one. And this is an ETF. And then Fidelity brings you right to the site, right to the ETF that it is trading. So this is the Fidelity NASDAQ Composite Index ETF. And it is just tracking technology stocks, basically. So I'll show you the composition on it. It has over 1,000 shares, 1,000 stocks within this ETF. But just these top 10 companies, they make up 51% of it. So very volatile because think about it, Apple's 12%, Microsoft's 11%, Amazon 6%, and the list goes on and on. So I found this article that I thought was important to read. And it just shows you that all ETFs are not created the same. And you really shouldn't be looking at just an ETF's expense ratio because there's much more. You need to make sure that you know what is actually in this ETF. So it gives an example. It shows, the S&P 500 and the Russell 1000 that there's not much of a difference. But if you looked at an ETF that only tracks the Dow Jones only holds 30 stocks. So you're going to get a completely different performance compared to the S&P 500. Another example is you have a China ETF that tracks an index that's 50% financial stocks. And then you have other ETFs that don't track financials at all. So you really need to break down the composition and look at what is this ETF actually investing in. And like sector exposure. Is it financials? Is it consumer discretionary? And you want to mirror something if it's long-term close to the S&P 500. So it's just telling you to pay particular attention not just to what the stocks, bonds, or an ETF holds, but how they're weighted. What that means is you saw in the previous that Microsoft and Apple were about 12 and 10% of the ETF. You want to make sure one stock isn't just completely outweighing all of the others. Because if that one stock doesn't do well, then the ETF is going to perform poorly. And on the contrary, if that one stock does well, that ETF is going to perform really well. So it's definitely what you need to consider when you're buying these ETFs. So Fidelity, it just offers, how to get started with investing in ETFs. And they have anything from whether you want choice, you want value, you want expertise, you want somebody managing it for you. And then they show their featured ETFs. So you can do the Fidelity Enhanced Large Cap Core ETF, where it's a United States equity strategy and it just has a large cap core profile. Or you can do the FBND, the Fidelity Total Bond ETF, where it seeks a high level of current income and uses global fixed income strategies to help add value in different markets. Next, a very popular one is IVV. And why? Because it tracks the S&P 500 and its 500 companies within it. And then you have Fidelity Wise Origin Bitcoin Fund, which is FBTC, and you can invest in Bitcoin, but you don't directly invest with Bitcoin with this fund. I just want to make that clear. It's just tracking the index. So as you can see, Fidelity offers all different ETFs. So I just wanted to give you guys another example of an ETF that is invested differently than like the S&P 500, for example, or the Dow Jones. So you have SEHD, the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF. And as you can see, this is passively managed, but I want you to see the holdings. As you can see, the holdings, top 10, 40%. There's no Microsoft in there, no Apple, there's no Nvidia, there's nothing like that. It's completely different sectors. So you can invest in different ETFs that cover different sectors. So I'll just show you on the bottom, look at the sector exposure, SCHD, healthcare 16%, financial 16%, and industrials are 16%. Now let me show you a different ETF that has a very different sector exposure. So this right here is Fidelity Disruptive Finance ETF. Now you have to be careful looking at these words. You got to really look at the composition right here, which is what stocks make up of it. But I wanted to show you that this is actively managed, so somebody's managing this, and 80% of the assets are in finance companies. So let's scroll down here and look at these holdings, 42 holdings in this ETF, that these 10 stocks make up 50% almost. And look at the sector exposure. 89% of this ETF is financials. So as you can see, you have to be very careful when you're buying these ETFs. Make sure you know exactly what you're buying and that you can see which stocks and companies and sectors that you're investing into. Because this finance ETF, FDFF, as you can see, it is investing mainly in finance, and it has 6% in Adyen, Visa 6%, BlackRock 5%, MasterCard 5%, and it just shows you where it's investing in, like mid-growth companies. So you have a very huge exposure to financials. So you always want to compare the other ETFs that you're investing in, so am I too much money in one section or one industry or one sector as I'm investing long term. All right, guys, this is my channel, Trading Simplified. We just recently passed 1,000 subs, which is awesome. Remember, this is entertainment only. Invest at your own risk. Definitely always do your own research. But, if you're feeling like you learned something, subscribe to the channel. Check out my playlist. I have a bunch of things. I have my long-term investments, trading strategies, my trading P&L for 2024. Investing for Beginners, which is where I'll put this video. I have my trading P&L in 2023, 2021, and then I have Fidelity Active Trader Pro where I show you what I've learned trading on the platform and how to use it. And then I always show the taxable and Fidelity crypto portfolio from 2022. So you can see what I'm investing in, why I'm investing in, just to get good ideas. All free content, all for your entertainment. Check it out. Maybe you'll learn something. Subscribe to the channel.